Clinton administration authorized $50 billion in a bailout to Mexico, which was really to Wall Street investors. At the time, you were advising the post-Soviet Russian government, which also had a had deep financial problems at the time, but was unable to get any significant Western assistance or even from the International Monetary Fund. And you were critical of that at the time. I'm wondering if you could talk about the differences, how the U.S. responded to the Mexico crisis versus the Russian financial crisis, and what the roots of that may have been in what the current situation is in Russia today.
Absolutely, and I had a controlled experiment because I was economic advisor both to Poland and to the Soviet Union in the last year of President Gorbachev and to President Yeltsin in the first 2 years of Russian independence, 1992-93. My job was finance, to actually help Russia find a way to address, as you described it, a massive financial crisis. And my basic recommendation in Poland and then in Soviet Union and in Russia was to avoid a societal crisis and a geopolitical crisis. The rich Western world should help to tamp down this extraordinary financial crisis that was taking place with the breakdown of the former Soviet Union. Well, interestingly, in the case of Poland, I made a series of very specific recommendations, and they were all accepted by the U.S. government, creating a stabilization fund, canceling part of Poland's debts, allowing many financial maneuvers to get Poland out of the difficulty. And, I patted myself on the back. Oh, look at this. I make a recommendation. And one of them for $1 billion stabilization fund was accepted within 8 hours by the White House. So I thought, pretty good. Then came the analogous appeal on behalf of first Gorbachev in the final days and then President Yeltsin. Everything I recommended, which was on the same basis of economic dynamics, was rejected flat out by the White House. I didn't understand it, I have to tell you, at the time. I said, but it worked in Poland. And they'd stare at me blankly. In fact, an acting Secretary of State in 1992 said, Professor Sachs, it doesn't even matter whether I agree with you or not, it's not going to happen. And it took me actually quite a while to understand the underlying geopolitics. Those were exactly the days of Cheney and Wolfowitz and Rumsfeld and what became the project for the new American century, meaning for the continuation of American hegemony. I didn't see it at the moment because I was thinking as an economist how to help overcome a financial crisis, but the unipolar politics was taking shape, and it was devastating. Of course, it left Russia in a massive financial crisis that led to a lot of instability that had its own implications for years to come. But even more than that, what these people were planning early on, despite explicit promises to Gorbachev and Yeltsin, was the expansion of NATO. And Clinton started the expansion of NATO with the 3 countries of Central Europe, Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. And then George W. Bush Jr. added 7 countries, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, and the 3 Baltic states, but right up against Russia. And then in 2008, the coup de grace, which was the U.S. insistence over the private opposition of the European leaders, and European leaders talked to me privately about it at the time. But in 2008, Bush said, NATO will expand to Ukraine and to Georgia. And again, if you take out a map and look at the Black Sea, the explicit goal was to surround Russia in the Black Sea. By the way, it's an old playbook. It's the same playbook as Palmerston in 1853 to 1856 in the First Crimean War. surround Russia in the Black Sea, cut off its ability to have a military presence and to project any kind of influence into the Eastern Mediterranean. Brzezinski himself said in 1997 that Ukraine would be the geographic pivot for Eurasia. So what these neocons were doing in the early 1990s was building the US unipolar world. And they were already contemplating lots of wars in order to take out the former Soviet allied countries, wars to overthrow Saddam, wars to overthrow Assad, wars to overthrow Gaddafi. Those were all rolled out in the next 20 years. They've been a complete disaster, debacle for those countries, horrible for the United States, trillions of dollars wasted. But it was a plan, and that neoconservative plan is in its heyday right now on two fronts, in the Ukraine front and on the Taiwan Straits front. And it's extraordinarily dangerous what these people are doing to American foreign policy, which hardly is a policy of democracy. It's a policy of a small group that has the idea that a unipolar world and U.S. hegemony is the way that we need to go.
Jeffrey Sachs.